Welcome back. It is 9:44 now. Nova Scotia is cracking down on travelers entering the province with a new declaration form that must be completed before arrival. It applies to people from outside the Atlantic Canada travel bubble. The province's premier says reports of visitors failing to self-isolate prompted him to ramp up their measures. The form asks for information like self-isolation plans, province of residency, and license plate number. After promising to leave the World Health Organization 2 months ago, U.S. President Donald Trump now seems to be moving forward with those plans. The White House has notified Congress and the UN to start the process of withdrawing the U.S. from the WHO, which could take up to a year. Trump has been critical of the agency's relationship with China throughout the pandemic and has already frozen funding. COVID-19 infections keep rising in the U.S. as the country nears 3 million cases and the death toll tops 130,000. California and Texas each reported over 10,000 new cases yesterday. The number of people in hospital in Texas has also more than doubled. Florida and Oklahoma have also been hitting new daily records. Dr. Anthony Fauci warns the worst is yet to come.
We are still knee-deep in the first wave of this. We went up, never came down to baseline, and now we're surging back up. So it's a serious situation that we have to address immediately.
We're now on Breakfast Television. International students studying in the U.S. are being forced to leave the country with little notice after the government halted student visas. Allie Miller has this story.
I can imagine that for some students, it would be an absolute nightmare and exorbitantly expensive.
In a memo sent out by ICE on Monday, they stated that international students whose courses remain online throughout the fall must leave, nor will international students be allowed to enter the United States. Also adding that student visas will not be granted to students whose classes are online, meaning many international students will now be forced to head home, and fast.
This is in the context of kind of a series of announcements from the government relating to hostility towards immigrants. It coming down yesterday wasn't that alarming.
Calgarian Joshua Seeley-Harrington has been living and studying in New York for several years.
There's very limited discourse on race and law in Canada. So I came here for the expertise of the supervisors that I'm working with.
The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has forced many universities to keep fall classes online. And U.S. Immigration Services is telling international students at those institutions they aren't welcome to stay.
Its application is kind of unclear. So as a doctoral student at Columbia, I think it's a bit plainer how it will apply to some a conventional undergraduate student.
Like many of these students, I was in the same boat 3 years ago. My bags were packed, my flight tickets were booked, and the rent for my shoebox-size apartment was paid for. The only difference between myself and them, well, these were valid, my student visa to study in the United States.
I wouldn't be surprised if some people had already paid 12 months of rent. And if you're talking about someone who's, maybe transferred rent from a different country, good luck getting to housing court in Manhattan.
In a statement to students, Columbia's president called the measures punitive immigration policies. That Canada will take the same measures as the United States. The University of Calgary keeping a close eye on updates.
This isn't no fault of the students, so we're, really working to try and meet their needs. So, for example, the online courses, we're asking instructors to be cognizant of students who may be in different time zones.
In Calgary, Allie Miller, City News.
9:48 now. 1 in 10 legions in Canada could close due to COVID-19. Our David Zura says it's a huge concern to our nation's veterans.
Some of the branches have started to open, so that's a good thing. But some of them are in real deep trouble.
Royal Canadian Legion branches across Canada are having trouble paying things like rent and utilities, and even hiring, as COVID-19 continues to put pressure on sales.
A lot of our branches had some money saved before COVID-19 hit us, and unfortunately most of them have burned through the money that they had in reserve, and we have tried to assist them through our Dominion Command emergency funds. Those are coming close to the end.
Branches don't qualify for emergency funding from the government, and he says nationwide 1 in 10 branches is on track to shut down permanently. While in British Columbia, it could be more like 4 in 10. Underhill warns if branches start closing, we'll see a loss of community identity.
That's unfortunate, you know. Some of the, we have a lot of seniors that go to the branches.
Not to mention how the loss of branches would hit the Legion's ability to raise money for the iconic Poppy Fund, which raises over $2.5 million every year.
Well, it helps to pay for some of the things that the veterans can't get through Veterans Affairs Canada, walkers and such that they need, transportation to and from hospital for visits, different things like that.
There are 146 branches in British Columbia. Underhill says the Legion is reaching out to the federal government for assistance, but has not yet heard back. In Vancouver, David Zura, City News.
All right, 9:50 now. Lots more to come on Breakfast Television, including some fun dancing robots. Stay with us.